Today's show is brought to you in part by Liquid Web. Look, there's a lot of choices out there when it comes to hosting your WordPress site, but Liquid Web is the managed WordPress partner you've been waiting for. Whether you're a business owner, an agency, or a freelancer, Liquid Web has you covered when it comes to performance, uptime, and ease of site management. And one of the things I love most, if your traffic spikes due to you going viral on the internet or any other reason, they're not going to use that traffic to charge you more. The price is the price you pay, period. If your website makes you money, use Liquid Web. They've got your back. Now they're offering a special deal to listeners of this show. You can save 40% for 4 months of hosting when you use the code OfficeHoursFM over at liquidweb.com/managedwordpress/officehours. Welcome to Office Hours FM. I'm your host, Carrie Dills. Today's episode is the 10th and final episode in a series that's meant to give you a complete experience of taking a project from cradle to a successful launch. By bringing together successful freelancers, thought leaders in digital, and people who've ranged from freelance to enterprise, I've curated the best advice from the most relevant point of views to help you succeed. Today's point of view is coming from Pat Ramsey, Director of Technology at Crowd Favorite, a digital service agency for enterprise clients. I've known Pat a long time through the WordPress community, have even worked together with him a couple times during his previous position at Crowd Favorite, Director of Ongoing Client Services. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. So let me back up just a little. We started this series with a conversation about lead generation, actually getting potential clients to become clients. And since then, over those 9 episodes, we've touched on various aspects of the project lifecycle. So I wanted to end cap this series with a discussion on what happens when you wrap up a project for a client. Is the relationship over? Hardly. I think it's an opportunity that it can just begin again. So I mentioned Pat's previous position at Crowd Favorite, which was the Director of Ongoing Client Services. He's a master of nurturing long-term relationships with clients and managing the work that happens after that initial project is complete. Whether you want to call it a maintenance plan, a retainer, ongoing client services, I don't care. Whatever you call it, this is where you can start to tap into some recurring revenue streams for your business. I'm excited for you to hear what Pat has to say, and after a quick word from our sponsor, we're going to get into the show. This part of the show is brought to you by SiteLock. Do you maintain, develop, host, or market websites for others? Would you like to add more revenue to your bottom line? Then you'll want to learn about SiteLock partner programs. Regardless of size and complexity, SiteLock offers partner access to cloud-based security solutions that quickly integrate into existing portfolios. SiteLock solutions deliver an instant recurring revenue stream, boosts client satisfaction, and helps partners gain competitive advantage. Call 888-878-2417 or visit sitelock.com/officeHoursPartners to start growing your company with SiteLock. That's 888-878-2417 or sitelock.com/officeHoursPartners. And now, on to the show. Hey, Pat, it is so great to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Carrie. Thank you.
Yeah, I when I was putting this season together and kind of looking at all the aspects of just kind of the life cycle of a project, the discussion would not be complete without talking about ongoing client services, ongoing support, which just so happens to be your area of expertise. So I'm excited to glean some wisdom from you today.
Cool.
Let's start out by maybe for folks that aren't familiar with the term OCS or ongoing client services, kind of describe what that is and broadly what it entails.
For different audiences, it probably means different things. For somebody who may be a freelancer, you could be talking about maintenance agreements. You move on up into more the small business, larger business, enterprise space. You're talking about things like just maintenance and support. You're talking about supplementing existing teams with ongoing help. You're talking about retainers. You're talking about ad hoc or sort of pay-as-you-go type arrangements for problem solving here and there as needed. So it's kind of a swath a wide swath of things. But the gist of it is you're talking about doing work with clients that's not just one-off projects. You're talking about they can call you up, they can send you an email, and you come back and work with them again and again and get paid for it.
So, okay, it is broad. My goodness. Okay, so we might have to break it down as we go and kind of what might be the best way to approach that based on whether you're a freelancer or a small team or a larger agency like you're at Crowd Favorite. I guess, so you said this is ongoing. I mean, obviously from the title, it's ongoing,
right?
But you have, initial contact with the client at some point. Mm-hmm. Do you always, is an agreement or arrangement like this always preceded by like some sort of a full scale project?
More often than not, but it doesn't necessarily have to. You could end up where somebody needs that type of ongoing support. Either, they're not looking to have a whole new site built, for instance, or an app made or something like that, but their dev team isn't up to the task. Their developer quit, somebody retired, whatever. And they need somebody to sort of be there and act as their in-house dev team or in a similar type fashion.
Okay. So let's go through maybe some small, medium, and large examples of kind of how this could look like. And what I'm looking for are some specifics. So in terms of, is this going to be a 5-hour plan? Can somebody call me 24 hours a day? Just kind of like, what are the, if you could break that out in maybe some different kind of scenarios based on size of team, what an actual maintenance agreement plan might look like.
As a one person dev team, if let's say, you run your own shop and, you are the developer, designer, accounts receivable, salesperson, marketing person, the solopreneur, maintenance agreements are, can be really helpful and handy things. And they can be something as simple as, for X amount of dollars per month, you get 5 to 10 hours of time for development or other such purposes. We make sure that, we have a monitor running on the site to keep it up. We're watching, your Google Analytics, and you get a prepared PDF emailed to you every month, and that's it. So it can be, very, very simple, easy peasy type things like that, which, if you are able to get 2, 3, 4, 5 of those as a single person dev shop, those recurring monthly payments can carry you through the feast or famine phases of not having projects and then all of a sudden having 80,000 projects and then not having projects again.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So would you recommend in that scenario doing more fixed fee? Well, I guess it would be fixed fee either way, but fixed fee to knock out a bulleted list of things every month.
I would say do that. Make it very simple and very concise. Don't go building 20,000 packages and offering those to people, because then you got to keep track of all that. Just come up with something very basic. If you know what your development demands have been, if you're tracking things in a spreadsheet or Quicken or, whatever, if you can put hours to dollars and see what kind of demand people have asked of you over a period of time, you can start to look for patterns and then see, okay, a 10-hour type retainer might be the perfect offering for now. See how that goes after some time and then make an adjustment to it. Maybe do a 20-hour one. Maybe do just a very basic 5-hour one that's a little more than updating plugins in a WordPress website type thing. Making sure things don't break when somebody hits the button.
Yeah, I guess there's just some different approaches in terms of, are you selling your time or are you selling a set of tasks?
You're selling the convenience and value that they get from not having to worry about that.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. I guess I was just trying to mentally wrap my head around, Are you saying to your client, hey, you've got up to 5 hours this month? Or are you saying, hey, each month I'm going to take care of these line items for you?
When I did this as a freelancer, when I was kind of running my own shop, I did it in a mixed way. I said, you get 3 bullet points. These 3 things are done every month. And then you get up to 5 or 10 hours worth of time, depending on how much they paid. So that way I was on, they could call me up and I'd be on call and I could come to their office and we'd work through some problems, do some troubleshooting, that type of thing. And that worked against that bucket of hours. But then they also knew that, the site was going to stay up. We were going to do what were we doing? We're, taking care of any 404 reports, monitoring various services to make sure things were running, things stayed up. And that was really about it.
All right. So that kind of covers, I guess, the small guy or the solo person. What would the next tier look like?
The next tier would look like a more detailed set of offerings and larger numbers of hours. So you're getting into bigger dollars. You're probably getting into contract times too. So instead of maybe recurring month to month, it's for 6 months at X amount of rate for this deliverable. So you're defining longer relationship times. So you're increasing your value there, which means you're also offering more on the regular basis. You're probably looking to, have a couple of extra people working with you in that case, because there's, the only finite thing in this is time, and there's only X amount of time per day and per month. So,
and who is the ideal client to? So anybody with a website could use sort of that first tier, right? Just making sure everything is up and running and up to date. Who's the ideal for this kind of what we're talking about right now? Is this someone, is this like an e-commerce shop that might need you to go in and add some custom functionality kind of here and there? Or is it?
It could be that. It could be somebody who's, starting off with initially a marketing site, just as an example, but they know over a period of time they have goals in mind of having various pieces of functionality added to the site. Somebody may be on a campaign and they're going to have lots of recurring type of work over a period of time that involves, updates to the website, digital content to be created, things like that. It could be somebody working towards the development of, an application and a website interfacing with a third-party system. And so there's a fixed period of time in which they're going to need some help. Maybe not necessarily purely on a project, but it's involving, development of, you got a team building out the app. You've got somebody who has to keep the website up. You've also got some marketing materials going on. So you kind of have a mix of things all kind of revolving around the website, perhaps. Those are just some thoughts.
Would it look really that much different at a large agency level?
It doesn't look that much different. It's just there's either more of the work to be done or larger type of contracts. You're talking about 1 year contracts, longer periods of time, bigger numbers of hours.
That makes total sense. So it's really the term of the engagement, or at least the upfront commitment, I guess.
It is. And I think that's, all things being equal, it is the amount of work you're talking about doing, being able to scale up because of all the various pieces that go into that work. There's a lot of overhead involved, not just writing code.
So let's say that I've completed a web build project with you. I've hired you for some level of ongoing services, kind of doing some bulleted list things, and every once in a while, some extras in there. Let's say I've got a huge chunk. I'm like, okay, I have decided that I want to add this whole other wing to my house. I guess the question is, at what point does a mini project that sort of falls under that sort of OCS agreement become a full project that needs to be, scoped and kind of go through a formal process?
Oh, that's a great question. That comes up all the time. And I think the answer there starts with the relationship you have with your client. You have an understanding of the work with your client because the hope is that you and your client are operating as partners. That's one of the first things with ongoing support is it's the relationship you have with your partners. So You have that built-in relationship that you've nurtured and you've worked on together. So you approach the problems together. So when something like that comes up, it's not that difficult of a question to say, to come to a realization of, yeah, let's not divvy this up against, a bucket of hours over a period of time, because this demands, sort of the full project type of approach, a fixed bid, a fixed timeline. We need this delivered by X, and there's X amount of work to go into it. So the ongoing support structure isn't the best fit for that. The ongoing support structure is you're there to help take care of things as they come up, to be proactive on various things, keeping the website running and running smoothly, making sure the new content is added, making sure the new functionality is put into place. But once the scope of a need gets to a certain scale, mathematically it doesn't fit within that structure.
Okay, so that makes a whole lot of sense. So let's say that we are operating under some sort of a ongoing service agreement. How are you planning out the time against the tasks? And I'm not necessarily asking about the tools you use, although if you want to talk about that, that's totally fine. But let's say you've got 5 hours in a month that are or 10 hours. What's the communication between the client and you in terms of, does that mean that you're spending 2.5 hours a week? Does that mean that you're spending 10 hours at the first of the month and it's, oh, sorry, Charlie, if you if you don't have that new bucket of hours rolled over and you need something else? Or, I mean, obviously that wouldn't be the case, but how do you kind of plan for and distribute those maintenance hours?
So in the world of me, in the Wayback Machine, operating as a freelancer, and I thought, hey, why don't I start doing maintenance agreements with people? That way I'm on hand. We already have an expectation set of what can be done, that type of thing. It'll be awesome. 5 seconds after that realization and starting to email some people about maybe doing this, I immediately thought of, what happens if the time's not used throughout the month and nobody wants to do anything? How much of that banks? How much of that adds up? Oh, wait, what if I have five of these things and everybody wants to use all their hours all at the same time?
Yeah.
Oh crap. So you start having those sort of eye-opening thoughts in your head, where you kind of sit up and go, wait a minute, I didn't think about this. So the first thing is to kind of play that out and make sure you got all that written down. The next thing is be very clear in the expectations that are set between you and the client as to how this works. The mechanics of how you do that vary from case to case. When you're again that one person shop and you're wearing all the hats of running the business, you want to keep your overhead to an absolute minimum. So you're probably not going to have a complex structure of communication, expectations, response times, deep contract setups, that type of thing. You might. I'm making an assumption here that you're going to try to keep your overhead to as minimum as what's necessary to keep things running smoothly so you get the work done for your client.
Yeah.
That actually doesn't change when you get into the enterprise space either. The enterprise space, nobody wants to use their time for a lot of overhead. They want to use it for actually solving the problems, which is the goal. So even there, you're going to have a lot of efficiency and reduction of overhead in place just to keep the focus on solving the problems that are rising up. So you're going to want to be pretty clear so that you understand, and the client, you both are sitting on the same side of the table, saying, this is how this works. Here's how we expect this time to get used. And here's what happens if it doesn't get used. Here's how much rolls over, if any. Here's, cancellation. You just kind of work those details out as efficiently as you can.
Is there a sort of industry standard for rollover time, or is that just anybody's guess?
To my knowledge, there's not an industry standard. It entirely depends on how you operate your business. If you have scoped the needs out for your client properly, if you and your client have sat there, you've worked out, here's what we see this looking like, here's kind of our expected needs, here's what we anticipate. you can model a monthly a contract with a monthly budget that's not going to need to get rolled over.
Okay.
Now, until you're in it for a while, until you've worked with people for a period of time, until you've gotten a sense of how that works, that may be difficult to do. So I'd fall back on the make it very simple and try to find a number that, you think you can do however many you see yourself doing per month. What happens if you do want to allow a rollover? Are you still able to get everything met contractually? Do you need to cut it to where it's not going to roll over? What do you show every month? How do you report that type of thing?
Yeah, that goes back to your original point about all of these happen. In theory, it's like, oh yeah, these hours roll over. But then,
oh, wait, 8 of them are doing it at once.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, that
We have
definitely.
3 days left in the month and everybody wants to get all their time done. What do you do?
Oh, well, clearly you plan it better from the start, but any tips there on like how you distribute that for multiple clients so you don't have that pile up issue?
Well, I think speaking with sort of that target audience of, hey, I want to get into doing retainer agreements with my clients, so that I can make a little extra, recurring money or whatever they call it, that type of thing. You do want to define a scope of what does this mean? What does a rollover look like? Do I allow X amount to roll over? Do I expire them after a period of time? Do I not roll them over? Is there a cutoff date in the month of when somebody wants to, basically call in their marks and get a bunch of stuff done? I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can approach that. I don't know that there's a right answer. I think it depends on the situation.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking a little bit about the things that would go into some sort of an agreement or contract. Have you seen any good open source, if you will, resources out there to kind of just show what maybe some of those contracts or agreements would look like and some of the language involved?
I have not. When I was doing this on my own, I had sort of a basic, English language or, human language type contract that I would use for my projects. And I can't remember who put that one out there. This goes back probably about a dozen years that.
Oh, wow. You're old.
Well, yeah. One of the early sort of public speakers on the web, I can't remember his name, did a lot of the early JavaScript and CSS web standards work, had a human readable type contract, and he would put that out there, and he would said, "Here's a text file. This is what I use." And so I modified that, and that became my agreement to keep it simple, to keep it clear, not to go into a whole bunch of lawyerese, at the time. Because, again, that's in one person shop. I was kind of keep my overhead down. And that, for me, that worked. That may not work for everybody. For me, that worked. If I were going back and doing it again now, I would have a deeper actual contract. Various sections and things like that. But that's 12 years of learned experience. So, yes, try to keep it simple. Make it effective. Make it real. And as far as how you would structure a retainer agreement, you're just defining the scope of these are the expected hours, this is the cost or whatever, however you're breaking it down. And it's very clear in there, just like any other contract.
Okay.
Because here's the thing, if you're a freelance developer and you're building sites for people, that's great. You build a site, you give them the site, they pay you, you walk away, you're good. You've done that. And you repeat that process for the next client. When you're doing retainer work or you're doing ongoing work, you're building value in yourself. You're not a freelancer anymore. You're a business. You have contracts signed for periods of time upon which you deliver certain types of work. There's sort of a expectation that comes with that of, yes, contracts matter. Make a nice, straightforward, but still professional contract, because you're building a portfolio of contracts, of agreements, of work with people. People are relying on you day in and day out. They're not just saying, okay, yeah, we'll build the site. Great. Thanks. Good to know you. And they walk away. You and your clients are working together as partners for a period of time.
So that actually makes me think of a question on the flip side. Are you usually signing any kind of contract on their end, or are you as the partner provider, the one?
So if you're doing a contract with people, you are both signing it. You're both agreeing to do it.
Yes.
That's my take. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I meant like, so let's say that you have client XYZ and you're giving your contract to them to sign. Do they also maybe have their own in-house contract that they get their vendors to sign, kind of thing?
I don't. I wouldn't do that if I were the case. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but when I was doing this on my own, no. I would sign non-disclosure agreements, but that would be about it.
Okay.
I'm providing you the service. I'm going to provide you the contract for this service.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was my approach.
I'm feeling you. Have you ever heard of the contract killer?
No, I haven't.
Sounds
like a bad WWE name or something.
It's something that I came across a couple years ago, but it's up on GitHub, and it's just basically human language for writing. Like if you had a contract for some sort of a creative project, a web project or design project or something like that, and it doesn't really quite work if you're getting into like a retainer or maintenance agreement. But I love that it just sort of gives a baseline, like some ideas for the types of things you'd want to include in just a regular project contract.
You are talking about so the original version of this is what I used. Going back to 2008. That's when it was.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah, Andy Clark's human readable contract.
Did you just pull that up from the depth of your memory, or did you cheat in Google?
Are you kidding me? I'm in front of my laptop.
Just checking. Okay. So, wow, we've kind of covered like all the major components of what that agreement might look like, some of the things that it might include, when it's appropriate to maybe get out from underneath that agreement in order to, break out and do, a project all its own. You do this day in and day out. I know that there are things that I'm not going to ask you, what question did I forget to ask you? Because I hate it when interviewers do that. But are there any tips or maybe just common gotchas that you've seen?
Yes. The first is set your scope and define it. Make sure that you and your clients understand exactly what's going to happen. Now, you're not predicting the future. You're not saying these are the functions we're going to write. Here's the code we're going to deliver. But you're stating, hey, this is how this is going to work. You're going to see this, and this is going to happen every month. So make sure that that's clear. If it's not clear and you go into this agreement, something's going to come up that's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. That, again, harkens back to make it simple, make it clear. The next one, there are a few things I've seen. The next one I would say is establish and maintain regular communication. If you're talking about monthly agreements, you and your client should be talking at least once a month. I would expect more than that, depending on the terms of the arrangement. And, think of it as you're at a restaurant and the waiter or waitress is coming up and, keeping your glass filled. You don't want them there every 5 seconds, adding more ice to the glass, but you don't want to sit there with an empty glass either. The perfect waiter or waitress understands how to keep the beverages full without being a pain.
That's a great example.
So set that level of expectation and maintain that level of communication with your clients. A big one is get paid, which means invoice on time. If you say you're invoicing on, the last day of the month, every month or whatever, if that's a Saturday or a Sunday, you're invoicing every month. Hopefully you have a system set up to automate this. But you're still doing that. You're not being the slacker, fly-by-night developer going, oh, yeah, I got to send you that invoice. Because on their end, they have financial expectations and financial forecasting they're doing. On your end, I'm hoping you're starting to do the same thing too.
Sure. So that brings up an interesting question. Are these sorts of agreements typically paid for ahead of time, like before the work is delivered? Or I guess it just depends at what point in the month you set up the billing cycle. But have you seen any standards there?
And if you're buying a set of hours, I would say you're paying ahead. So they're gonna send you, you're gonna invoice them on the first of the month. And you're invoicing for the month ahead.
Gotcha.
Because you've already defined what that looks like.
I had a great conversation with Emily White, who runs a small agency here in Texas, and she was talking about how she had implemented some sort of ongoing arrangements, and basically it's buy a block of time on her website, prepaid, and she said that it is the relief that it's brought has been fantastic in the sense that when a client emails or a client calls and says, hey, I need this, then it just removes that whole awkward, okay, am I giving my time to you or do I need to actually quote you for something? Like there's just already an arrangement and an agreement set up, and then it allows both of you to kind of move freely in that.
If you have a contractual arrangement already in place for time spent solving your client's problems, you're exactly right. She's dead on. You've just eliminated all of that unbilled overhead of how am I going to recoup my time? How much time am I putting into this? It is so true. And that's all the way up from freelancer to enterprise.
Awesome. Well, Pat, you have been a fount of information, as I expected. I expected that you would be. Where can people follow up with you online if they want to, stalk you or say hello?
The agency's website is crowdfavorite.com. You can always see what we're doing there. You can find me on Twitter at, I believe it's Pat_Ramsey. I hope I know my own Twitter handle. I click the icon and it comes up, But yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's Pat Ramsey. And then if you're in the Austin area and are looking for a WordPress meetup, I'm very active in the WordPress meetup that we have here. And you'll probably see me at some of our regular events every month.
Or if you're in Austin and want to smoke a good cigar or drink a great craft brew, Pat is your man.
Yes. If you are in Austin and want to enjoy a nice cigar, we can find a porch somewhere.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Pat.
Thank you, Carrie. It's been a blast.
And that wraps up another episode of Office Hours FM. I appreciate you joining me and tuning in. If you want me to let you know when new episodes are coming out, just sign up for emails at officehours.fm/subscribe. You can also find the show notes and links for this episode and the full archive of episodes over at officehours.fm. As always, if you enjoy what you hear on the show, just share it with someone else who you think might enjoy it too. Until the next time, cheers!